The Great Divide. Is marriage becoming a luxury for the wealthy? An economic shift that could reshape society forever. Have you ever noticed that getting married seems to be getting harder? Not because people have stopped falling in love, not because people no longer dream of having children, but because more and more people feel they simply can't afford the life they imagined. For decades, we've been told that love conquers all. But in reality, rent is due. Mortgages are expensive. Childcare can cost as much as a second mortgage. Healthcare keeps rising. College tuition continues climbing. Groceries cost more. Insurance costs more. Almost everything costs more. And somewhere along the way, many people quietly began asking themselves a question previous generations rarely asked. Can I actually afford to get married? Today, I want to explore an idea that I think deserves far more attention, not because it's politically controversial, but because it may fundamentally change what society looks like over the next 50 years. What if marriage is slowly becoming a privilege of economic stability instead of a pathway toward it? Marriage used to build wealth. Historically, marriage wasn't simply about romance. It was also one of humanity's greatest economic partnerships. Two people, combined labor, combined income, combined risk, combined dreams. You didn't need to have everything figured out before marriage. Marriage was often how people figured life out together. They rented tiny apartments, bought fixer-upper homes, started businesses, raised children while slowly building wealth. They struggled together. Marriage wasn't viewed as the finish line. It was viewed as the starting line. Something has changed. Listen to the conversations happening today. I need to buy a house first. I need to pay off my student loans. I need to get promoted. I need 6 months of savings. I need to travel first. I need to become financially secure. None of these are unreasonable goals, but together they reveal something fascinating. People no longer ask, "Can we build a life together?" They ask, "Have I built enough of a life before I'm worthy of marriage?" Those are two completely different philosophies. The first assumes marriage creates stability. The second assumes stability must already exist before marriage deserves consideration. That subtle shift may be one of the biggest social transformations of the modern era. The wedding has become bigger than the marriage. Political commentator Lauren Chen recently said something that caught my attention. She argued that weddings are overvalued while marriage itself is undervalued. Think about that for a moment. Some couples postpone marriage because they can't afford a $40,000 wedding. Others begin married life carrying debt from the ceremony. One day delays a commitment intended to last decades. Now, don't misunderstand me. Celebrations matter. Family traditions matter. Culture matters. Weddings create memories that last a lifetime. But somewhere along the way, the event became more important than the institution. Social media certainly hasn't helped. Perfect venues, perfect dresses, perfect photographs, perfect vacations, perfect first dances. The pressure to create a cinematic experience has never been greater. Ironically, the marriage itself rarely receives that same level of preparation. Very few couples spend months studying conflict resolution, communication, financial planning, or relationship psychology. Yet those are the very things that determine whether the marriage succeeds. The economics are impossible to ignore. Now zoom out. Housing prices continue climbing. Inflation reduces purchasing power. Healthcare costs continue rising. Childcare costs can exceed college tuition. Young adults carry record levels of debt. Meanwhile, wages often fail to keep pace. It's no surprise people delay marriage. It's no surprise birth rates are falling. It's no surprise anxiety about starting families continues increasing. People aren't necessarily rejecting marriage. Many simply feel priced out of it. Imagine where this leads. Now let's think 20 or 30 years into the future. Higher income couples continue marrying. Lower income couples increasingly remain single or simply cohabit. Birth rates continue falling. Single-person households become more common. The cost of living alone rises because fewer expenses are shared. Saving becomes harder. Building wealth becomes slower. Marriage becomes even more difficult. Do you see the feedback loop? Each trend reinforces the next. Eventually, marriage doesn't disappear. It becomes concentrated. Almost like home ownership, still possible, but increasingly associated with financial security. Marriage is also an economic institution. This is where many discussions stop. People often say, marriage is about love. Of course it is, but it's also about economics. Two adults sharing one household create efficiencies that simply don't exist living separately. One mortgage, one internet bill, one electric bill, one kitchen, shared transportation, shared insurance, shared emergency savings, shared risk. When one person loses a job, two people can often absorb the shock more easily than one. When one person becomes sick, someone else helps carry the burden. Marriage creates economies of scale. It's one reason economists consistently find that married households often accumulate greater wealth over time. That doesn't necessarily mean marriage causes wealth. Financially stable people are also more likely to marry. The relationship works in both directions. But regardless, marriage and wealth increasingly reinforce one another. Children experience different starting lines. Now imagine two children born on the exact same day. One grows up with two financially stable parents, a quiet home, consistent routines, college savings, predictable meals, stable housing. The other grows up in constant financial uncertainty. Frequent moves, parents working multiple jobs, little savings, greater stress. Neither child chose those circumstances. Yet decades later, those early differences may influence education, career opportunities, health, income, even the likelihood of marrying themselves. This is how inequality compounds, not through dramatic events, but through thousands of small advantages accumulated over decades. Financial literacy could change everything. This raises an obvious question. Could financial literacy help? I believe the answer is yes. Imagine if every child learned from an early age how compound interest works, how credit cards actually make money, why debt should be respected, why investing early matters, how taxes work, how inflation quietly steals purchasing power, how businesses create wealth, how to negotiate salaries, how retirement accounts function. Instead of graduating at 18 and learning these lessons through expensive mistakes, young adults would already possess decades of financial understanding. Financial literacy wouldn't solve every economic problem, but it could dramatically improve millions of lives. Relationship literacy may be even more important. Here's the surprising realization I had during this conversation. Relationship literacy may be just as important. Schools teach algebra, chemistry, biology, history, but almost never teach how to communicate, how to apologize, how to resolve conflict, how to recognize manipulation, how to discuss finances, how to build trust, how to choose compatible partners. Yet relationships influence almost every aspect of life: mental health, career success, parenting, financial stability, longevity. A healthy relationship doesn't just improve happiness, it becomes an economic advantage. Likewise, an unhealthy relationship can become one of the most financially destructive events in someone's life. Relationships compound, just like investments. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question. Perhaps the question isn't, why aren't young people getting married? Perhaps the better question is, have we built a society that makes building a family increasingly difficult? Because if adulthood itself keeps becoming more expensive, marriage becomes more expensive. Parenthood becomes more expensive. Home ownership becomes more expensive. Everything begins shifting upward into higher income brackets. Without anyone intentionally planning it, family life itself slowly becomes stratified by wealth. What should education really be? This leads me to one final thought. What is the purpose of public education? Is it to prepare students for employment or to prepare them for life? Imagine replacing just a fraction of traditional coursework with subjects like financial literacy, relationship literacy, critical thinking, media literacy, AI literacy, communication, negotiation, entrepreneurship, mental health, decision-making. Imagine graduating millions of young adults who not only know how to pass tests, but know how to build prosperous lives. Maybe we'd see less debt, more investing, healthier marriages, better communication, more entrepreneurship, stronger families, perhaps even a stronger middle class. Final thoughts. Maybe marriage isn't disappearing. Maybe it's evolving. Maybe it's becoming less about romance and more about economics. If that's true, then one of the greatest challenges of the 21st century isn't convincing people to value marriage. It's making sure ordinary people can realistically afford the life that marriage has traditionally represented. Because a civilization where only the financially secure feel comfortable building families may become a civilization that's increasingly divided, not just by income, but by opportunity. So I'll leave you with one question. If you could redesign education from scratch today, knowing everything we know about economics, psychology, technology, and relationships, what would you teach every child from the age of 5 to give them the greatest chance of living a prosperous and meaningful life? I think the answer to that question may shape the future far more than almost any political debate we're having today. Support the channel, buy us a coffee. Cash App QANDA Media.